I know I'm kinda late to the party on this, and that's why this review will only focus on a few interesting things. I'm mainly going to talk to you about the gameplay, the campaign, and the open world to some degree, and lastly I'll close off with some of my predictions of Halo being a live service game. So in case you don't know by now, or this is your first video, I do not like to waste anyone's time here. So here's the TLDR. When it comes to the first two things I listed, Infinite pretty much nails it. It's just a fact that this is one of the best playing shooters on the market. The core mechanics, especially the grappling hook, allows anyone to feel like they're playing in a mid-splits video. And that's not even mentioning the crazy shit people have been doing to the fusion coils. The story, admittedly a little trite in places, feels like a nice return to form in its simplicity. It echoes past Halo games while leaving its own footprint. I know I'm going to sound cliche, but you are doing yourself a disservice by not playing this game. I mean, for fuck's sake, the multiplayer is free, go get it. Also, heads up, from here on out I'm gonna show some footage that might spoil some key gameplay moments as I talk about them. So if you don't want any of that shit spoiled, get out of here. I'm not joking when I say this next part. This is the best Halo has played in quite some time. I can't think of any other way to describe it other than it's pure bliss. The game is just downright intuitive. Let's say you have a plan or you want to do some crazy in the moment shit. The game just does that and it falls into place. Usually. The only thing I outright disliked were some of the vehicles. The Ghost and Mongoose are fine for the most part, but the Chopper and the Warthog leave a lot to be desired. The Warthog in particular is a rolling contradiction and it pisses me off. It feels both heavy and too light. Like, it'll fall from high places and the sound design and effects lead me to believe that it has a lot of weight to it. But in action, the smallest pebble will knock it over. However, that and any other minor complaint that I can bring up are negligible at best when it comes to the full picture, which is Infinite is just rewarding to play. One of the more popular examples is how you could do the side objective normally, or you can take the Razorback and fill it full of Marines wielding sentinel beams and make it a laser death wagon. The key words here are intuitive and emergent gameplay. It's not all sunshine and rainbows though. The game isn't perfect. I still have some gripes that I feel I need to bring up. One of them being the open world. Like, the fact we don't get anything other than a fucking forest to explore is a damn shame. Halo has always had interesting locales, and the fact that this one doesn't it disappoints me more than anything. And here's an unpopular opinion. The side objectives are extremely skippable. However, I will say that's more of a bias as opposed to an actual complaint or even a pitfall of the game. And even I have to admit that it's done better than other titles as far as immersion and reward is concerned. Like, for example, I was doing this mission where I had to go download some data for the weapon, my AI waifu, and we passed by this banished checkpoint of some sort, and I actually thought this was part of the mission because of how seamless the dialogue felt. It was really interesting. But again, I just don't like open world stuff like that. Ultimately, my complaint boils down to the fact that you're able to ignore most of this and you actually get a much better story experience for it. The campaign, while it isn't a race against time, does give me the sense that I have to stop the Banished and their plans sooner than later. I'm sorry, I just can't imagine Chief would take time out of his day to destroy these towers that are reading off some grunt propaganda or some shit. And by the end of the game, they set it up so you can go off and do the side shit and it makes more sense in that context anyway. The only thing you might miss out are some cool variant weapons and some audio logs because system shock, and some vehicles that might help you traverse the world, if you haven't already chosen the fusion coil as your personal chauffeur. Which, by the way, if you haven't, you're doing it wrong. The thing that kinda sucks is that these side activities are sort of cool, if a little repetitive, and it does flesh out the Banished to some extent. But it's the same problem games of these types always face, balancing the story with the open world chores. And yes, I personally feel at the end of the day, the open world stuff is more of a chore that I do not want to do. Also, side note, what good are the unlocks if I can't replay the missions with my cool new shit? Which, honestly, that's a moot fucking point at this point, because they'll probably patch it out by the time I get this video out, since it is a live service game, which I'm gonna go in more depth in a bit. I just gotta say it, dude. Overall, the gameplay is absolutely phenomenal. It's a nice return to form while enhancing and venturing down new avenues. In other words, gameplay not stinky. Oh, and I forgot to mention those bosses. Man, they kick ass. Except this one, look at this shit. That's cheap.
Humanity's fate.
Alright, so there's going to be some light story spoilers for the next section, so go ahead and skip on through or mute or whatever you do. I'm not going to go in too much depth. Overall, the campaign was a great time. The characters are fun, bubbly, exciting, and new.
Is there a problem?
Of course not. Let's see what's down there.
I especially like the dynamic between the pilot and Chief. How he just goes into this existential dread dealing with the insane Jesus cyborg.
No! No! You! I can't stand this! Who you are?
Breathe.
No! You don't get to tell me what to do. You don't get to tell me anything! We're... Are you even listening?
I count 3 anti-aircraft cannons.
3 what?
You'll be safe here.
Oh, I'll be safe.
It's just hilarious, and Chief is just downright funny in this game.
Okay. And you can do that?
No. New plan.
I also really like the Banished. They're not only some of the most fun enemies to fight, they also feel pretty threatening. I guess my only problem was with the Harbinger, seeing as how I almost forgot to write about her, and that should be enough information for you. Again, the story wasn't perfect, but it's the most Halo-feeling Halo has felt since Halo. Halo. Alright, so now we get into some of the fun stuff. Some of my predictions for the live service and some loose rambling. And from here on out, there will be some heavy spoilers. So before you go, buy the game. It's good, it's fun, it's nice. The way that this is going to work out is I'm going to list some scenarios and grade them on how likely I think they will happen. So here's one of the scenarios. I think one of the next campaigns will follow a Spartan team that was on Zeta Halo before Chief. We see a lot of Spartans in the campaign, and this would work as sort of a prequel to the game, and it'll fill in the gap between what happened in those 6 months that Chief was missing. And I also think that they'll use the same exact level that we're on right now, so we'll mostly get forest biomes. One cool thing I did think of is it would probably be your multiplayer Spartan, either that or Spartan Lock. So I actually think that this is a very likely scenario. Alright, on to the next one. So obviously if you've watched the end credits, you know Atriox is alive or something, and he did something that awoke this thing called the Endless. So that needs a follow-up obviously, and it's extremely likely that this is going to happen. It's probably going to be down the road, maybe the next campaign. Another scenario I think will happen, towards the end of the game's life cycle, maybe in like 3 years or something, we'll see playable elites make a return, and with that we'll get an Arbiter campaign to accompany it. This is very unlikely to happen, but do it anyway. To follow that insanity, I think we'll also get an Atriox campaign of some sort. Maybe another prequel, maybe on the side of the Brutes and all of that, in the same vein of Halo 2 and playing as the Arbiter. This is where playable brutes would obviously make their debut, and this is just an absurd scenario I want because of Monkey. So yeah, that's kind of the video. Thanks for watching. Bye.